Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. On this podcast, we go week to week watching one of your streaming favorites, breaking it down, providing some context and some recommendations along the way as well. In today's episode, we'll be breaking down the fourth episode of DTF St. Louis. Joining me for this conversation, as usual, Sona. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. We had a beautiful day yesterday, and now it's raining cats and dogs.
That's springtime for you.
I did enjoy the couple of day and a half of nice weather we got.
Got to strike while the iron's hot and get out there because you never know how long it'll last.
I saw Project Hail Mary this weekend, by the way, and it was really good. And I would recommend this as a family film, by the way. I think that, and by the way, I've seen Hoppers as well, the animated film, the Pixar film. And yes, both of these recommended for if you have kids of any age, honestly, but even if you don't. But Hoppers is very much a kids film that will entertain older audiences. So one will be very funny. And also very funny is Project Hail Mary, the new Ryan Gosling, which is a little more serious sci-fi, but this works really well as a family film. And I won't break down why that's the case, but I think this is a great thing to watch with your son, for example, if he has any interest at all, or a father-son movie date, obviously, if your son has any interest at all in space or science.
I actually don't think I've heard of Hail Mary.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, okay.
But I will say my husband and my son just went to see Goat last Friday, and they enjoyed that very much.
Yeah, there's a basketball playing goat.
Yes. My husband did find it a bit overstimulating, I will say.
I would highly recommend this Project Hail Mary film, and it's going to be a huge hit. This film, by the way, was tracking to open around $50 million. And usually when a film by the end of the weekend does better than it's tracking, it indicates good word of mouth, or if it underperforms, usually bad word of mouth. So this didn't overperform by a little bit. It ended up with over $80 million, which is the largest opening weekend for any film that is not based on some other intellectual property. So and I understand why. It's like a real crowd pleaser, really beautiful, very funny, and by the way, very positive message about like science and cooperation and friendship. So I'm like I said, this plays great for older audiences, which I think it was geared to, but this is very much a strong family film. And once again, not spoiling anything, but there's a character in this that I think is going to make this appeal. It's going to be like every kid's favorite character for the next few years.
Oh, really? Nice to know.
So yeah, highly recommend it. I don't think the movie's perfect, by the way, but I think that as a popcorn film, it gives you everything you want. Sona, before we get into this episode of DTF, I did want to mention or ask you first, but then mention it as well. Did you catch up with Rooster? Have you seen the third episode of Rooster by chance?
I haven't. I am one behind because during the time that the new episode of Rooster comes out, I am watching DTF St. Louis.
Okay. No need to. I just wanted to call it out if you had seen it. I literally was trying to remember what the laugh lines were, but I love the first episode of the show. It is preposterous. I take all the criticisms legitimately. It is preposterous. It is another Bill Lawrence show. Everybody here, although they come from completely different backgrounds and have completely different lifestyles and completely different life experiences, presumably, all talk to each other like they all went to high school together. And this is just how Bill Lawrence shows are. And by the way, many writers write all their characters very much in a similar tone. That's par for the course. But this show is, like so many of his shows, heartwarming but prickly and odd, and it embraces the oddness of the characters. But episode 1 I thought was hilarious. Episode 2 I liked, but I didn't think was as funny. Sona, episode 3, which I won't spoil anything here, and I really can't, is just so funny.
Great.
Every 3 minutes, I was just laughing out loud. I really am enjoying this series.
I can't wait. I did enjoy the second episode as well, although I agree it wasn't quite as hysterically funny as the first episode. I still found it funny, and I liked how the story is developing.
And it's hard for me to remember all the funny laugh lines. There are so many situations and things that are hysterically funny in this particular episode. But I was thinking just last night when I was watching it that Steve Carell, kind of I mean, I know he's one of the most famous comedians we have in this generation, but again, I really have to shout out the fact that he is not playing a version of himself. And sometimes when I watch, for example, Shrinking, in general, I think the cast there doesn't always exactly hit the right tone for Bill Lawrence's style. I think all of them, they all work sometimes, but it's just a matter of taste. But so far, of course, this is a new show with a new cast, and maybe it's just the freshness of it. I feel like everybody here is like perfectly in the tone of the show. And I do want to specifically shout out that Steve Carell, I really started to appreciate him here in episode 3. He just perfectly delivers the line, underplays things when he needs to. There's a lot of like physical pratfalls because he's got new shoes that he's wearing here in this episode. And he keeps slipping and sliding, and he keeps telling himself, I'm sorry, I didn't scuff up my shoes. And then the next day he still hasn't. And he like slides down a hill, and he continuously does not learn from his mistakes. Which says something about the character as well. But he does the physical comedy really well, as we've seen in the past. But he's just really spot on with how he will just throw away a line or just like a stray observation. It's so funny. Or he says something incorrectly, and then he'll immediately be like, I just heard how that sounded. It's very funny. And yeah, he's doing a terrific job. But everybody in the cast, some of these smallest roles are just absolutely hilarious. So I really enjoyed the 3rd episode of this.
I'm looking forward to it. I actually was trying to think the other day about when the first time was that I had seen Steve Carell in something, and I think I landed on 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yes, which was recommended after Rooster ended, which is available on HBO Max as well. And I was thinking like, wow, what a weird like universe where those two characters might be the same person. Probably not. He started writing books right after that movie.
It's really an interesting career that he's had between that and then, of course, The Office.
The Office, yep.
And then he had some movie roles, right?
Oh, he was a big star for a little while, yep.
Yeah, pretty good.
And he's back on TV again, doing a lot of TV, actually. So, yeah, it's interesting. I don't think he ever had like a big flop movie. So it's interesting that he's made this pivot back to TV. But who knows? Maybe the production schedule is easier. But I mean, you think about it, he was on the morning show for a little while. He has this show, of course. He made like some Netflix space comedy where based on something that Trump had said that they made Space Force, I think it was called. Like about a bunch of, which is completely forgotten because it didn't do well. And he was in The Four Seasons for one season.
Right. Yes.
So, I mean, and there's probably other things I'm missing.
Very prolific.
Very.
Good for him.
But I don't think he's been doing movies in that batch of work. I think he's done some like voices for cartoons and things like that. But anyway, interesting. But he very busy, of course. But excellent on this show. And I presume, given the strong start to this, and I would assume continued, I mean, just the fact that you're setting up this pretty large cast of characters, they do want this to be a multi-season show. So interesting.
It feels like it has a lot of potential. And one thing I really liked about the second episode is they're starting to build out the character, and I can't remember her name, but she's pregnant, if that helps.
Yes.
They're starting to add some depth to that character that I really liked in the second episode.
And she gets more screen time this episode 3. Mm-hmm. She's not quite working for me yet, but maybe we'll see. I mean, everybody's risen to the challenge. So I'm curious to see as they give her more screen time, how that character develops as well.
I appreciated that it seemed like they were trying to add some nuance and complexity to a character that it would be very easy to say, hey, shouldn't be sleeping with your married professor. You're an awful person, and just write them off. Right. Oh, yeah. I've heard some criticism, maybe some of the negativity around this show is this commentary of, they're trying to normalize, cheating on your spouse or something. And in general, interestingly, the backlash really hasn't happened to DTF yet, I don't think. But there's often this case where whenever there's like a cheating spouse, people have a very negative reaction to a show. But I do think that could be a decent amount of people find it triggering for one reason or another.
For sure. But I mean, in my general opinion is, I don't think that that's something that should be glamorized in any way. But if it's just simply characters living their lives, I think it's definitely something to explore. It's something that happens all the time.
Yeah,
So
life is complicated. Relationships are complicated.
exactly. And speaking of, perfect segue into this episode of
Yes.
the fourth episode of DTF, which is called Missouri Mutual Life and Health Insurance Company, which, by the way, as soon as you saw the title to this episode, you're like, well, that's going to tell us a lot about what we're going to see in this
A
particular
lot
episode.
of life insurance related questions answered in this episode.
Right. And some mystery solved on the show as well. But a couple of things there, obviously connecting to Rooster about the idea of messiness of life. Here we go again. But more than that, speaking of a show that made me laugh, and I really loved this episode. I don't know how your reaction is, Sona, but I thought this episode was terrific. What did you think?
I thought it was great, and I think they should release that rap as a single because it was very catchy.
I agree. They're going for the whole Beastie Boys thing. It was fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah.
It was one of the laugh out loud moments of this episode, but there were a couple of them actually. As the episode begins, we have Carol discussing wearing the Umpire outfit. We know this is a problem for Floyd. And we literally open on this conversation. Why do you have to be an umpire? And it is interesting because I think this is definitely a theme in this particular episode, that part of this, I think, is his emasculation of her wearing this larger outfit, because that's definitely a theme of him feeling like, and there's this great scene later on where they're talking about what you thought you were going to be based on the movies you watched as a kid when you're an adult male. And of course, Floyd, is actually great at some things, but not great at other things that are like seen as traditional masculine traits. And I think that this bothers.
Just make a call and cancel the lawn guy. It's just a call.
Exactly. I totally agree. But I do like that we open the episode totally in Carol's, giving her the most empathy we've had of any of these episodes. And we see things going back to the idea that my theory, like last week, that isn't it tragic that probably all this happened due to credit card debt? And I'm like, maybe that's not necessarily off base at all at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the situation where we have this scene very intentionally where he's in a bubble bath while he's having this conversation about the money problems that she's trying to make him see. And like you said, just cancel the lawn service, which is a hilarious payoff. And I think it's the perfect tone for this show, that we have this whole opening sequence. We see all the financial pressures on Carol. We see that Floyd is not, from her perspective, he's just cluelessly going about like this man-child, not doing what he needs and not picking up on the cues from her at all. And you can see how frustrating that could be from her point of view. But then, of course, they add some complexity to the way that, Floyd's perspective on this well. So he's not as simple and brutish as we see in this opening segment, but the comedic beat, which also pays off dramatically, where she is crying in the Umpire outfit. He has confronted her that he doesn't want to see her in this anymore. Meanwhile, she is like wearing this all the time, presumably as some kind of defense mechanism, a way to bury herself in this or to make herself bigger or something. Or maybe it's just the control. She has been listening to these tapes about control. And as an umpire, she can call balls and strikes, and she maybe feels a little empowered by this. So there's some aspect of this that's feeding her psychologically. And then for him to come in and be like, by the way, can you stop wearing that? And she uses her, something in the tapes about changing the conversation, ending the conversation abruptly. And he's like, oh, okay. So something that, but of course, the button on that moment when the lawn service comes in with their leaf blowers is so hilarious because, he didn't call them. And simultaneously, she's breaking down. And I thought at that moment, I'm like, this is exactly the tone the show's been trying to hit this whole time, and nailed it in this one moment.
Yeah, I totally agree. Not only the expense of the lawn guy, but also a leaf blower has to be one of the top 3 most annoying sounds of living in suburbia, right?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I have been on this podcast before, and I've sometimes asked you, can you hear that? And you'll be like, no. And it's my neighbor during the spring and where they are out there with the gas. We have a battery powered blower that we use on our lawn. And this guy still has the old school gas powered. My God, it's so loud. And there's two of them, just like this. It's identical. Two of them with the leaf blowers every week.
Yeah, that was a great scene. I will say just one superficial comment that I keep forgetting to make. The way Carol uses "no way, Jose," it's clear to me she has never met a person named Jose in her life.
Yeah.
That is such a strange phrase to use with the frequency that she uses it.
She also has these mantras, by the way. I don't know where they come from, but there's something very much about her character here. The constant "no way, Jose," the "for serious," are you for serious?
Yes.
Which sounds very childish, this "for serious." But more importantly, we see another one. This is new. And again, I think this says something about her. I'm not sure what it is, but the show's definitely trying to say something about her, that where she goes, we have to get better plates. We got to get better furniture for her son and more grown-up furniture for her son. And then they got to go to the boarding school, this private school. And she says that over and over again, like it's a mantra. First we do this, then we do this. And by the way, clueless Floyd, again, just, I mean, I think you're probably going to touch on this anyway, but like on her birthday, he gets her these diamond earrings, which on the one hand would be like, oh, well, that's something nice. He's giving her something she wouldn't buy for herself, potentially. But he knows what she wants, or should know exactly what she wants. Cancel the lawn service, A. B, the plates, use this money to buy new plates, which apparently matters to her and probably a comp. But of course, he's also doing it because he's trying to encourage her. Why aren't you a little more feminine? Right. So it's not really a gift for her. Right.
Yes, I agree with that. I will say, as a person who is in a, I suppose, somewhat similar stage of life, it was kind of crazy to me how she grouped those expenses together, where it's like, we need new plates and bowls. I mean, you can get that from Target for, I don't know, less than $100, I'm thinking.
For sure.
A
That's
decent
a big set
too. And then, okay, the furniture, that's a bigger expenditure. And then also $28,000 a year until this kid turns 18.
Right.
Like, it was crazy to me that she's like, if I just umpire, we can start to work towards this. One of those things is not like the other to me, but okay.
There's also, he's like, how long are we going to be doing this? And she's like, 2 years to start putting money aside for the boarding school.
Right. Because they have the debt too.
Right. To get to that point, like 2 years, that's a long time for this kid who's obviously having serious, emotional problems. But not that would solve them anyway, potentially. But the idea of that, and of course, he says he's going to pick up Saturdays as well for his signing work. And he picks up these special, events. But then you think about, he's like taking these dance classes. So you do wonder how much money he's netting out of all this. So it is, we're not sure.
Only that, but now that I'm really thinking about it, and I know the show does not want us to take it this seriously, but as somebody who lives in a place with a lot of very expensive private schools, financial aid is a thing. So True. Why wouldn't they look into that? But I know that we're not supposed to be thinking about it in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how that works or how this private school works as far as offering how much financial aid they do, if there's enough demand, I should say. So I don't know. But regardless, I mean, when we find out later on that he still has $48,000 of his own debt, they're probably in no circumstance to spend any additional money.
Right.
And on one hand, this $85 per umping job, and she's doing multiple ones in a day, oftentimes, obviously that turns into real money over the course of a whole year, let's say.
Yeah, sounds like it.
There's a lot of debt to clear out on top of that. But even this, and she does have the control, like I mentioned, she's an umpire, maybe something she doesn't feel she has enough control in her regular life. But this crazy scene where the son is smashing gallons of milk.
Oh
milk
my
is
gosh.
Not cheap, by the way. And in Albertsons, meanwhile, she can't leave the game she's at, and she has another umpire game coming up, and she hasn't been paid for 3 weeks. So this is just another headache that this thing is becoming as well. And then she has to answer to this teenager who won't cover her at all in the last game, for example. Like, you would think that if this was a middle-aged person who had some empathy for her, would basically say, well, I'll cover the game, go take care of your son.
Yeah.
And he's just like, don't leave. I don't know if you're going to get paid at all, while he's scrolling his phone. It's like the most irritating visual you could imagine in this show. But
like the little play ball interaction at the beginning of her umpiring career, though. That was a cute misunderstanding.
She knows absolutely nothing. Going person to person. You could play ball. No, that's not how that works. Obviously, she's never done this before. And she doesn't even know how to play baseball at this point, it seems, although she's probably learning it on the job. I also like the fact that she
willing to
ends
put
the
herself
game
out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, she's giving it a shot. And they desperately need people. By the way, I have this experience as well. We were just talking last night about how my daughter's starting soccer today, and she's starting like for the more competitive league. And they are it's like boot camp. And she's probably not going to enjoy that at all. But the rec league is so like rec. It's just like whoever shows up that week, the parent wise, is the coach. And Kim was saying, like, can't there be an in between these two things? But
we had the same question when we started travel soccer, and maybe there is an in between out there, but I haven't found it. So I'm here for all your travel soccer commiseration.
Well, I'm sure we'll have much more to talk about as the season continues.
But also, and I know we're going to find out more about Carol and her motivations, and I'm not sure where these timelines intersect, but this lady just spent $50 at Jamba Juice in an afternoon.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good point. This is definitely after the Jamba Juice incident, by the way. So, but it was that's an investment. So that's an investment.
Right. She has a plan theoretically, she has a plan here.
And like I mentioned briefly, I really like the whole situation where she needs to take a break because she has to come back in the next game. So she just calls strikes, and the game, everybody's furious at her. And she's just, I got to get out of here. Which is something she can't do as an umpire, right? Just everything's a strike until everybody's out.
This game is done.
It's finished. I have to go pick up my son and be back here for the 7:00 game. So we're wrapping this up right now.
Oh, by the way, this is also a little callback to the Excel spreadsheet from last week, where one of the items was show respect for groceries.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Yeah. How is he's definitely not showing respect.
No.
And my God, if he smashed up that whole...
The cow worked hard for that.
That's for sure. Plus, I mean, I don't know, this is 2017, but still, milk is so expensive. And you think about as he's smashing those bottles, I'm like, oh my God, how much money is this going to cost him? It's going to be the whole umping game today. At the very end of this sequence, we see that Carol and Clark are together in the hotel again. And she mentions to him like, oh, this wine weekend sounds really fun. Are you looking forward to it? And he's like, yeah, I am. It's going to be so great. And he's all excited about it. And then, of course, as he's saying this, we start to segue back and forth, transition into his actual weekend. And he's not at this weekend with his wife. He's not at this weekend with Carol. He's at this weekend with Floyd. And this is so great, this whole sequence. Just these two guys, which is tragic, of course. This, again, the perfect balance here in the show of this middle of this episode being just an absolute blast and so sweet that these guys are like having a bromance in their midlife, which is something that's like absolutely impossible. I'm sure it's difficult for women too, by the way, but there's like a national crisis that, you've probably seen all these profiles and articles and 60-minute episodes about all these older men who are divorced or widowed and have no friends, have no social lives at all. So the miracle that these middle-aged guys have made a new friendship and the tragedy of it, right? We know that Floyd is going to die, right? So that's always haunting the background, even though in the moment, this is fantastic. All these scenes are so great. All their bonding with each other, riding their bikes together, Floyd getting way too drunk to be riding a bike afterwards. Hilarious. They're doing the Beastie Boys song, like you mentioned. All of this is just perfect. And it's easy to see Floyd up until this point from Carol's perspective as this like real buffoon. But we see a much more empathetic view of him here, right? We hear that he is racked. I mean, this sounds like it is a serious problem he probably needs to get help for. He has serious anxiety, right? And first of all, the fact that he wants to leave the DTF app, which I know he doesn't do. So I'm very curious to see how that happens. But he's thinking about leaving the DTF app because it stresses him out. As a matter of fact, meeting with modern love. He thinks about this, that maybe the guy noticed that he wasn't into it. And this is adding to his anxiety on top of course, that's just one part of his anxiety that he's added to himself now, on top of the $48,000 and the school and everything else. And he says that he feels like he has this, it's actually a really wonderful piece of dialogue. He has this little bird heart that's always fluttering, but cannot fly. So it's, and he wants to have, what would it feel like to have a man heart?
Yes, all of it very sympathetic, unless, and I don't think this is the case, but I can't rule it out, he's setting up Jason Bateman's character.
You know what? I have thought, we can talk about that for a moment. I thought the same thing. I'm like, what if Carol is manipulating the Jason Bateman character from both sides, saying, you need to talk to him about this, but don't let him know that I know. And then she's doing the same thing to him, being like, well, maybe he can help you with the money. And that's actually a way to read this, that she's manipulating them both. The reason I don't read it that way is because when he starts crying later on, when he starts crying and then can't stop crying after Clark makes the offer, and then he crashes the bike because he's still crying while they're riding the bike afterwards, which I found very funny.
Yeah, I do think it's less likely, but I can't 100% rule it out.
But I think she could be manipulating him, or at least nudging him, because I think he already has this anxiety a little bit more, possibly nudging him, because you think about the fact that he is saying so many things that she has said to Jason Bateman, where he's like, I really worry about leaving them only the debt, like giving them no assets at all. So it's less than zero, seriously,
right?
Giving them less than zero because they'll be stuck with this debt. And then, of course, what's some way to ensure that possibility would be life insurance, but you can't pay the premiums. Well, what if someone else can pay the premiums? And the other reason that part of the reason that this doesn't feel like it is quite the same thing, that she's manipulating both things in both directions, because only the life insurance policy would be one thing, but there is this other complexity here where he brings up the fact that they really want to put the kid into boarding school, which doesn't seem to be, I should say private school, for his condition, borderline personality disorder, which seems to be pretty severe diagnosis, by the way.
I don't know. I actually think maybe it's just reflective of the people in my life. I think it's not unusual to have borderline personality disorder.
Maybe I'm wrong about that. It seemed to be that in the olden days, like if you heard your kids had that or someone in your family had that, it was like a severe diagnosis, but maybe it is completely normalized now. But smashing milk cartons is definitely bad, but could be worse.
It's an impulsivity issue for sure.
But this whole conversation between the two of them, I really loved. And it also touches on, I think, a broader theme in this entire show, which is, again, this idea of the Floyd character and his expectations of what being a man was, of what masculinity was. Mm-hmm. And I love his analogy, by the way, that's not what I imagined when I was growing up. And Clark asks him, what did you imagine? And he's like, I don't know. I imagined I was jumping out of a chopper with a parachute, or out of a plane with a machine gun, and that other people were floating by on parachutes also being like, you're a great leader.
Yes. He was G.I. Joe, essentially.
Basically. Exactly. And then, of course, Jason Bateman turns this on him by saying, you know what I thought about being a man would be a friend in need, like being able to help out a friend in need, and they'll help me out when I need it as well. That's what it is. And I don't know if he actually had that fantasy, because maybe this is true. Maybe we're finding out something about him, that he always wanted to be a provider if he could offer it. Some people are like that. They like to fix other people's problems. It's something but of course, we could also just read this very simply as, double indemnity or something, where they want to have an insurance policy and they want him to die so they can collect the money. Although I have a feeling that is not what we're seeing here, or minimally that maybe that's part of the agenda. And there's also some severe guilt about it.
Wait, you think Carol and Clark are setting up Floyd?
I think there's a version of reading this, and I think the show leaves all those things open at the same time. There's a version where this could be like Double Indemnity, where you have the vixen seduces the victim of this manipulation into disposing of the husband so that she can collect the life insurance policy.
I see. Okay.
And that she's not overtly saying that. There's a lot of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. This could happen. Could have a heart attack. Wouldn't that be terrible? He's not in great shape. If he had a life insurance policy, that would give us some financial, and that Clark's looking at her and able to read between the lines without saying it out loud. And then the shape of the show is that he understands that and yet starts to feel real guilt when he has a real friendship with Floyd. I actually think that is the easiest read of what we're seeing here. I think that the story is probably going to end up more complex than that. Do you have a specific read along those lines of, do you think, what would be your theory at this moment?
I don't have a theory, but as you know, I never have a theory. I like to not think too hard about it. But I do think that the show has given us several viable explanations for how we end up where we are. And I think that is on purpose.
For sure. Yeah. I think that they want us to
including, as you speculated from the start, Floyd taking his own life is still definitely out there.
Yeah. And this is why I like this episode so much. It wasn't just that some of the moments, individual moments and character moments are terrific. There's some really great scenes in this episode. And I thought that it hit the tone that like in the first episode, I'm like, I don't think this show is hitting this tone correctly. And I felt like it got its tone right in this particular episode. And like you mentioned that at the beginning where we were like, I don't know if there's enough show here, that regardless of what the payoff is, I don't know if there's enough show here to continue this. And now I'm exactly on the opposite side of that, where, like you mentioned, there are multiple theories that still hold water. And it's not that we're going to have the rug pulled out from underneath us and haha, you didn't even see this coming. It's going to be that all those theories hold water because they're all in play. Like all the characters, like I think that there's a version in moments where the Clark character himself is wondering if Carol's intention is to hurt Floyd or if it is to actually help Floyd, right? So I think that he himself has questions as to what's happening. And like you said, the show has laid out multiple theories that can all be real or should be correct. And we are still trying to suss it all out, which I think is, again, exactly what the show wanted to be, a mystery and a comedy at the same time.
Yes.
I like their own language that they're developing between themselves. First of all, I love the fact that Jason Bateman now can sign like pretty proficiently. So he's obviously committed himself to this, which is actually really beautiful. He likes the idea that they bring out, they be out the B in each other. They bring out the best in each other, which I liked all that. Speed cornhole, like all the things he's trying to do to make him ace his physical. I love the fact he's so crestfallen when he doesn't ace the physical, but he passed. Oh yeah, that's all they needed to do was to pass, and he passed. That answers the question, by the way, you had last week. That I was like, well,
it does.
The life insurance policy.
Yeah, I thought somehow they wanted to take out a life insurance policy without him knowing, which I was kind of thinking, what are the logistics of that?
Exactly. And then, but no, he's in on it. And that's what's interesting about even seeing the scenes for next week, that these theories are all in play at the same time. And yet everything's on the table, which is kind of fascinating. And this middle section here where we get to kind of see things very much from Floyd's point of view culminates with this great scene. Again, really interesting when you think about what's happening here, where he gets to talk to Richard and pitch to Richard that the school could be a good thing for him. And that example of being like, you feel like an oddball, but there could be that person, which of course he's made a friend now with Clark. And now he's saying that your friend might be there waiting too. I've always felt like an outsider. And now here you have this opportunity. And he's like, I want to be a father figure for you. He can't actually say dad or dad figure, he says. And that Richard saying to him that you are a good dad figure was like all he wanted to hear. But of course, it requires that Richard is actually, I'm sorry, not Richard, I should say Clark is actually facilitating this, which is an interesting dilemma that he's in, right? But he does get to help out Richard in this way.
Yeah, and I really like how they have developed this or shown us more about this relationship between Richard and Floyd and how it has evolved from the first scene where he's reading him that note and he's scratched out dad because Richard is saying, "You're not my father." Yep. So it's very sweet to see this bond.
And of course, we have the Beastie Boys, reference song here in the midst of all this as well, which was just like a total blast. And like you said, I do hope that they release that on Spotify. Interestingly here, we have towards the end of this sequence, we have Carol and Clark in the hotel again. And this is a weird conversation they're having because, and again, this could be read purely, it could be a version of this could be that Carol is actually trying to help Floyd. And then the more nefarious version of this is that she's giving Clark plausible deniability for a more nefarious take on this. But it's interesting how she has this conversation of saying that, well, we want to get him in good shape because part of the reason that they're not having sex anymore is because he has this body image issues. So she literally says, I want to be able to have sex with him the way we have sex. So
that is some wild pillow talk.
That's what I'm saying. How crazy is that you're talking to your one lover about, hey, can you help me have this kind of sex with my husband? It's so wild. And she also mentions, by the way, so he was in he was in very good shape, theoretically, relatively recently since they've been together post-divorce. So it's not that only that there are these pictures of him when he was much younger in the Indiana Jones, the Playgirl pictures, because she brings up the fact that, oh, he's not in good shape now, but you should have seen him before. And she mentions the magazine, but it seems like she's talking about he was like in really good shape when they first met and he's let himself go. And then she calls out what we've already speculated on, that he still has that magazine. And sometimes I catch him looking at his old pictures and he looks so sad. Sadly remembering, as we all do, sadly remembering what we used to be.
So true.
Yes, life is cruel in that particular way.
Youth is wasted on the young.
That's for sure. And of course, this is where she has that interesting conversation where reminding him again that the life insurance conversation's only between you and him. And you have to promise for serious.
Listen, I do understand how you could theoretically keep the life insurance thing a secret. The private school thing, though.
I know. Where is this money coming from, right?
Right. There's no way that theoretically, if things were as Floyd believes them to be, she would not question where that money was coming from.
Maybe he's relying on the fact that she's not going to ask. Of course, she's not going to ask because she knows full well what's happening.
Maybe he's going to say the school loved him so much, they offered him a scholarship. I don't know.
I think he could also lie about, oh, they gave me extra money at work or something, which...
Maybe. I do want to point out in connection with this life insurance thing, and maybe you were going to get there, when Clark is filling out the paperwork, once again, we see his wife and she's fully in the dark.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So very purposeful choices being made there with that character.
I brought it up again. I put it in my notes. And by the way, emailed with a listener who was talking about the set or I should say the location where they shoot the pool. This is actually in Duluth. Was it Duluth?
Definitely Georgia.
Decatur, Georgia. And yes, but not called the Kevin Kline pools. There.
To my misunderstanding of what you were trying to say.
Yes, which was very funny.
I said, why would the Kevin Kline pools be in Georgia? What kind of connection does he have to Georgia when you and I were texting?
He's lived everywhere.
It really went over my head, the point of the email. Yeah.
But in the email, she specifically called out that Emmy is definitely a candidate for, and I'm like, oh, absolutely. We have felt that way. And to the point of, we've called it out briefly. We haven't really delved into this theory at all, but we briefly called out the fact that in the pilot episode, she is literally out of focus, even from a distance. And then little by little, she's been in more focus from episode to episode. In the second episode, we finally see her face on, square on. And then last week, we don't see her. And this week, she gets one scene, like you mentioned, and it's literally just her head popping into the garage. That's just
in the shadows.
Exactly. Yeah. So very much stalking the film from the back, or the series from the background. So I do think that she is going to come into the foreground literally and thematically over the course of the next couple of episodes. I mean, we have 3 episodes left after now. So it's, we're getting to the end game. And I'm almost certain we're going to have an episode that shows these same events from her perspective. By the way, as you mentioned, in the garage, he is pretending that he's still tuning the bikes to see how long the lights will last. If the girls ever do decide to go for a bike ride on this thing, we don't even know how old the girls are. They are really out of focus, by the way, on this whole entire show.
Well, these bikes have become a real Chekhov's gun situation.
Absolutely, yes. And perhaps the actual implement, or a facilitating the death, the death as well. And of course, he's actually in the garage on his computer. I was like, oh, is he like updating his DTF profile or something? Nope, he's filling in the life insurance policy. And by the way, bearing the lead here, that's of course what the key relates to, where the post office box where these secret life insurance is going to be delivered.
Right.
It's so interesting in this way, in this dynamic here, where Floyd is like, we need to keep this secret from my wife. And this is where it's so interesting the way this triangle is developing, because he's like, oh, I got to get a PO box to hide this from her. And of course, she's orchestrating all of this, and you need to keep this in the shadows from me, which of course, if she is setting all this up, it is truly nefarious work here. But as we've speculated multiple times, probably not exactly as it appears. What do you think? Do you think Emmy knows what's going on or questioning it? Because on the one hand, you're like, how does she not know that thousands of dollars are disappearing? But on the other hand, I'm like, I don't know. You don't know anything about her. So is she just a housewife? I don't mean that in a derogatory way, in the fact that the reason I mentioned that is, if she's the housewife and she lets him like manage all the money, then his money, if thousands of dollars, and he's wealthy enough, it's not going to matter theoretically. Although on the other hand, I know people who are, have that kind of situation where the housewife, takes the kids to school and manages the household, but managing the household includes looking at the bills. So she may very well know something's going on.
Yeah, I wonder too, how wealthy are they that this money theoretically wouldn't be missed? But even if they are that wealthy, it doesn't mean she hasn't noticed these significant sums of money missing. So there are some questions there. And then also, I wonder about how the original premise for the problems in his relationship with his wife were partly that they're on such different schedules.
Right.
But from what we see, he's got plenty of spare time.
Yes,
so
he does. Yes.
I don't really know.
Like just the fact that he is in the garage at night and she's in the house. What are you doing out there? There's an opportunity to spend some time together. But yeah, you think about how this adds up between the hotel rooms, which probably aren't like, it's probably like a daily hotel, so nothing crazy. But if this is happening every weekend, and of course, the biggest one is the private school, 20-something thousand a year. So when you add all that in, that is 35, 40 grand a year. And even if he makes $250,000, this is 10 years ago almost, as a local weatherman, probably not a $1 million a year job. You're not like a weatherman in New York City. So maybe he makes $250,000, but if $250,000, if you're spending 40,000 just disappears from that, that is noticeable. Especially if you're like, oh, you got that promotion at work. Let's get the patio and all the new, landscaping done this year. And you're like, no, that 40 grand disappeared. It's like, wait, what do you mean? 40 grand disappeared? What are you talking about? So, of course, this revelation about the life insurance is also what tells us about the PO boxes and the keys. And honestly, these detectives should have thought about a PO box before, but I wasn't thinking that. So I guess they're just as clueless as I would be in that particular circumstance.
Well, I love the point about how there are always these orphaned keys on anyone's keychain.
That's a very good point.
No idea, no recollection of what they ever opened. I mean, that's definitely been true for me.
I definitely have that. And as a matter of fact, on my keychain right now, there is still a fob I had from my old office, which I have not owned that business in multiple years. And the fob to get into the building is still on my keychain, serving absolutely no purpose. So Plum and Homer are discussing the case and making that case, like you mentioned, that, hey, there's always some orphan keys floating around. But this, of course, allows them to not only crack the case open, but allows them to have another great scene with Peter Skarsgård here.
Yeah.
And part of this is the fact that if indeed it is the case, if their Detective Plum has been re-watching or re-listening to the testimony or the evidence, the story provided by Clark, and the whole idea that, well, he wasn't into it, he was just being polite, which of course Homer is like, that sounds really weird. But he goes, hey, the minimum we could do is talk to this guy and see what his read on it was. And it's this great character scene. I actually thought when I'd seen on the trailer that he was going to be in this again, I'm like, oh, is he somehow related to the case? And maybe he is. That might still be a payoff here that maybe he'll keep popping up. But mostly he's here just to open their minds to another possibility. But of course, to also have this very fun interaction. And I love all of this. First of all, seeing him on his home turf, this roller disco, hilarious. Sona, by the way, have you seen this meme of malls should be converted to old age homes for Gen Xers? Have you seen this?
I have not, but what an idea.
Yeah, it basically is a meme that someone, I think some younger person, sent around being like, hey, that's what we can do with the malls. They'll have roller rinks, they'll have arcades, they'll have a food court. It'll be like 3 stories tall. It'll be, and like basically Gen Xers responding under this feed being like, I see no flaws of this plan, no flaws of this plan at all.
Sign me up.
Exactly. That'd be perfect. Like that would be actually a great business to not only have a retirement home, but cater to your nostalgia specific.
I had totally forgotten until I saw that scene that the roller rink always has that spot in the middle. That's like a little mini lounge. Yep. Of course, there's got to be something in the middle because why not? But it had completely slipped my mind that that's what a roller rink looks like. Is there's that little area with the sofas in the middle. Especially
when it's empty, right? It's a very striking set, actually. But he's got the lights going, which is a nice touch. And I like his whole philosophy here. A bunch of things here that he says that are very clever. One is, I love the fact that he says that all interactions are sexual, all of them. And they're like, really? All interactions? And he goes, yeah, for example, I am now suddenly attracted to an older gentleman, an older balding gentleman, an authority figure.
Yes.
But of course, all of this, a couple of important things here. Another one, of course, is him saying specifically, this is multiple times we've seen this, everybody looks normal from the other side of the street, which is such a weird way to phrase that. And I have a feeling, considering that phrase has come up multiple times, that I predict that in the near term, of course, we only have a few episodes left, somebody who we would not have expected to have any interactions with him is going to say that exact phrase. That's my prediction.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll give them away. Hold on a second. You knew this guy, right? In some way.
It feels like a very apropos statement for something that is set in suburbia, right? Where
for sure, yeah.
You are always seeing your neighbors coming and going and blowing their leaves and whatever it may be.
And of course, speaking of suburbia and things that are kind of forgotten and unseen, he makes an incredible observation. So hilarious. I laughed out loud when he's saying that, hey, this is all, on the surface, what's going on in suburbia. Then why do they need to have a mailboxes, etc.? That's where all the dildos go. They should call it dildos, etc.
So true.
Oh, so funny. And of course, that cracks the case because they're like, hold on a second. There's a mailbox, etc. right down the street. And that indeed is where this key goes. And there's some junk mail in there. And most importantly, there is a letter from regarding the terms of the insurance policy, $1.1 million.
Yeah.
Made to Carol. And there is your reason for the murder.
Perhaps.
Motive. Perhaps.
So here's something I wanted to raise that I can't take credit for at all because it was something I saw while scrolling on Reddit, even though I try not to read too much about the shows that we're watching. So one thing that had occurred to me is that we've seen Carol's either maiden name or prior married name several times now, that it's Love. Carol Love Schmernich. Smernich, whatever.
Right.
The point is Love. And then someone on Reddit had pointed out Modern Love. Maybe there's some connection between Carol and Modern Love. Of course, it was a picture of David Bowie and
and the song.
Right.
But that is fascinating theory that ties into all of this. What if I was thinking, like, is it going to be that Modern Love, which is a great observation, by the way, right? So that's the first time, or maybe not the first time, but one of the...
By the way, that connection I made on my own. The speculation was that Carol and Modern Love are related, but I'm the one that thought about the name.
That's a great observation, regardless of who made it, a great observation. That yes, love. And then, of course, we're thinking that this character is just purely using Modern Love, of course, the David Bowie reference.
Right.
But then what if it's using that name as a pun on their own name? Right, wordplay. So that would be a fascinating, and then it would make this potentially that, imagine that she's manipulating on one side and this other person who's related to her in some way manipulating on the other side. And that would be very interesting, that all of this is coordinated in some way. And
I just feel it's strange that they have shown her maiden name at least twice that I can think of, possibly more. And it's weird that it's Love and not something.
Right. Sure.
Right. Just generic.
Yeah. Very interesting theory. I had not considered, but I love it. I love that theory. I love a good theory.
Interesting thing to think about anyway, even if it's a dead end.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I love it. And also would play into some of this, like how is he the one who drops this clue and all of that as well. Although this makes her look guilty. So could be some kind of revenge in some way. So very curious to know if there's some payoff there. Oh, and going back to, that doesn't contradict at all what I was mentioning before. It seems like this phrase is going to come out of somebody's mouth. And I was thinking maybe it's Clark, like maybe they've been interacting, Clark's persona online and this Modern Love character who are both on DTF. Maybe they chatted back and forth a lot. So then he says it out loud and they're like, hold on a second, there's some relationship there. But how fascinating would it be if Carol comes out with that phrase and then Plum is, what did you say? Yeah, very interesting. And that might be a clue that drops in a not too distant future.
And then she'll wrap it up by saying, no way, Jose.
No way, Jose. Do you know Modern Love? No way, Jose. And honestly, like this end of the episode, some of it was the music, some of it's the filmmaking. That music starts to play under the, as they're going to the mailboxes, etc. And we know they're going to unlock that door. And all of this was like actually like a little bit thrilling. And of course, this is in parallel with Floyd discovering the affair between Clark and his wife. Yep.
So in that scene, I don't understand how he knew what room to go to. Are there things we're not being shown?
I think that's a very
we just supposed to accept it?
I think there's more to that story and they're intentionally leaving it. That's my guess. There's a simple way to, they could cross that and simply say he saw something on a book. He overheard a conversation. He watched her walk to the apartment, but then I think he would have seen her in the room with Clark himself. I wouldn't be surprised at all if there is somebody who sends him there specifically.
So you think we will see more about how this came to be?
I think we will. Yeah.
Okay.
That's my guess. But I mean, like I described before, I wouldn't be surprised at all. What if he just followed her one day and sees her go into that hotel room and then he decides maybe she goes on a regular schedule. He sees her go there 2 times and then he sneaks in one time to eavesdrop on what's the goings on in there. That's one way to do it. I actually think it might be something like you described. It's kind of odd. It doesn't seem like he's been there before. Obviously he's talking to a woman who runs the motel and it's like, oh, I left something in there. Can I go check on it? And very innocuous, knowing that this is when they meet regularly. But to your point, maybe somebody goads him into going there and he gets an eyeful, apparently. They're still playing power games here. again, where he's the pool boy getting reprimanded by his client.
Yeah. Again, with the awkward sex scenes. Yes.
Yes. At least we didn't have to witness the actual sex scene this time.
Yes. Thankfully. The way this was shot made it so devastating for Floyd, right? There was just such a somber last few seconds where I just felt awful for Floyd. But because I can't rule out the fact that maybe this is some sort of racket, I don't know. Maybe,
Yes.
maybe it's misleading. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had issues with earlier episodes where exactly like you're describing, I'm supposed to be like enjoying the moment and then fretting for someone's outcome and not even knowing if they're actually the villain in the piece. And all of that wasn't working for me. And honestly, I don't think anything's changed with the show, but for some reason that all of a sudden is working for me. So I don't not appreciate what you're saying. And as a matter of fact, I have made that criticism before, but it just kind of is working for me right now. But I can imagine some people watching this show and that would not work for them. This whole idea, like you said, that you're like, is he in on it? Is he not? Was he aware ahead of time? Was he not? So it makes you kind of second guess your emotions.
Yeah, I don't even mean it as a criticism, but just I'm making these assumptions based on the cues that are being given to me. But
Right.
Is that what's really happening?
Right.
You know?
Right, which could be a frustration. Actually,
Right. For me, it is not a criticism, but it is something I'm wondering about.
Yeah, I mean, Ian, one of our frequent emailers, emailed back this week and was talking specifically about DTF and mentioned exactly that. He had caught up just recently on the show, and he had also agreed with us that the third episode was the best, but he specifically called out that the show seems to be basically running on misdirection and not revealing too much information, and that might work for you. For me, it works. The character elements of it work, where you're kind of seeing more and more of the character one episode after another. But on the mystery side, it seems like they're so intentionally withholding. It forces you to change your opinion on somebody or in an event after the fact. And that I like that, actually. So I'm just curious to know how the audience in general might appreciate it.
I don't mind it largely because I know there's only 7 episodes.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
7.
So we are going to get closure on this sooner rather than later.
Right.
If this was like a traditional thing where it was going to go for, I don't know. I don't know how long a traditional season of TV is now, maybe 12, 14. I don't know. That many episodes, I might get tired of it. But for a kind of a short burst, I find it interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Even if the emotional payoff is deflated by some of this, it's short enough. Yeah. I mean, I think if they were jerking you around for 10 or 15 episodes, you probably start feeling like it's a soap opera, basically, right?
Exactly.
It changes their motivation from one week to the next. But yeah, it's short enough where they could probably make it pay off. Oh, and of course, at the very final moments of this episode, we also have a Kinks song on the soundtrack called A Rainy Day in June, I think it is, or Rainy Day in June, I think it's called. And I bring that up, not that it's a very popular Kinks song, but I did want to call out the fact that, Sona, did you notice that not only in the theme song, but in almost every single musical choice, that it's all weather related? Did you notice that?
Did not notice that in this episode or always?
Across the board, actually.
Wow, I had not picked up on that at all.
So the theme song is Let the Sun Shine.
Yes, of course.
In the very first episode, there was Hello Sunshine by Aretha Franklin. I think the first episode ends with Sunshine of Your Love, the cover by Ozzy Osbourne. They play The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore by, all sun-related songs in that first episode. And that was the Frankie Valli version of that song, not the Walker Brothers version, which is the more famous version. Ain't No Sunshine Since He's Gone, but the Gladys Knight and the Pips version of that song is another cover. So a lot of covers of popular songs, like the Ozzy Osbourne song, of course, a cover of them.
Well, a lot referencing sun specifically up until now, anyway. I don't know if it's going to take a turn when you go through more.
But rain also, that's what I was going to bring up. That's what's interesting is that early on, almost definitely in the first episode, I haven't tracked every single track, but every track in the first episode is sun related, even though the sun ain't going to shine anymore is kind of a downside of that as well.
You know, sunshine when she's gone. Yeah.
Right. And exactly. So there's a dark side of that as well. But the reason I mentioned that is because we have in this episode ending with rain in June, rainy day in June. And the Temptations doing I Wish It Would Rain last week. So now that we have rain, anyway, I just think it's funny that all these songs are weather related. And of course, he's a weatherman, guys. He's a weatherman.
Of course.
Anyway, clever, very clever. So any speculation? Did you watch the trailer for next week by chance?
I didn't. I don't know if it's something about the way that I watch this show. I don't get a trailer unless I'm not sticking around long enough.
And it's weird. It usually plays at the end. The episode ended without playing the trailer. And then I went to play it again to just watch the trailer because sometimes it exits out before the trailer will play. And this is on the Max app in general. Like when we're watching The Pit, the same thing happens sometimes. But of course, when I tried to replay the episode, immediately I have to watch 3 minutes of ads. And I'm like, I can't do it. But luckily on the episode under extras, they have the trailer for next week.
Oh.
There. Anyway, in case people don't want to get spoiled on it, I just wanted to mention that one thing just to you, but if anybody wants to dip out now, feel free. But the three of them have a conversation about, so this is what's interesting about it. And it's kind of what I was part of the reason I said earlier. It's interesting that it is like a traditional film noir type plot, but all the pieces are on the table at all the time. So it makes you curious as to how this is going to fit together because there may not be that much hidden. And specifically in this regard, I mean, not the life insurance policy, I would presume, we'll have to wait and see, but the trailer is where they have Carol and Clark meeting up and Floyd walks over and she goes, "Why is Floyd here?" And Floyd just sits down with the three of them.
Wow.
And of course, we also had that conversation approximately this point in time, we would assume, because we see that Clark's become very good at signing, where he tells him in the gym that I know you're sleeping with Carol, right?
Yes.
So we presume we're about that point in time here in the timeline. And again, it would be very interesting if all of a sudden this is all out in the open. And then where does the show go from here? And I don't know. And I love not knowing.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
So yeah, that's it. Overall, really a lot of fun. I'm very excited to see the next episode.
Me too. After hearing that from you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a little shaky early on. I even joked that I'm like, well, we'll see how the ratings are after week 2 or week 3 if we just talk about it on the side. But yeah, it's gotten better each week. The ratings have gotten stronger each week. Our downloads have gone up every week. So everybody seems to be happy with us. By the way, did you watch any of Imperfect Women by chance?
I did.
I made it halfway through episode 1 and I didn't hate it. So I could continue if you recommend, but I was not very compelled by it, to be honest.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
It is what it is. And what it is watching actors I like in a whodunit.
Yeah.
Where they've given everyone a reason to have done it. I don't expect it to be quality storytelling. I don't expect it to be an airtight plot. I do expect it to be a great thing to have on the TV while I sort through my clothes to figure out the seasonal shift now that it's getting warmer, right? Like it's background television viewing that will keep me entertained enough. I don't think it's going to be must-see television by any means.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking about incorporating this into our coverage, and maybe we will dip in here and there, especially if Kim wants to watch it with me. I probably would be more motivated to watch it if she gets into it. But to be honest, we're still covering The Pit. We're covering this show, and this show has become interesting enough to be a whole episode.
I get that.
And of course, most important of all, Sona, next Friday, not this Friday, next Friday, Your Friends and Neighbors is back, and we're going to have to be doing 2 conversations anyway. But maybe we will continue to just in the background, just percolating back there. We'll check in on that show as well.
Sounds good.
All right, Sona, thank you again for the conversation.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.